The music and my mic is on. Uh-oh.
That way.
Hold on. And we're live on another episode of Beyond the Pendulum. I'm having this really weird my stream is displaying some weird numbers, but I think it's because my network is unstable and it's been having some drop frames. And there we go, it's syncing. I'm on a mesh network. That's probably what's fucking it up on a Google Home. But welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pendulum. We were gonna try something different this time. But it went to shit at the last minute because we were supposed to do it on Spaces. I have my other partner in crime online. I don't know where he is, but he's busy running a business, so I imagine things come up. Yeah, we were trying to do this thing on Spaces, and I was going to hold on, there he is. We are on Discord. I gotcha. Yeah, he's working right now. Yeah. Yeah, that was good timing anyway, because yeah. So apparently, Twitter never developed any up tools. Yeah. Twitter developed any tools for the laptop or PC version, so I either need to emulate Android on a laptop and using streaming software on top of that, which is completely well, it's not completely ridiculous. In the IT world, we run virtual machines on top of virtual machines. Yes, that is done sometimes in some really wacky situations. Yeah, you do. You end up with severely, a virtual machine on a virtual machine is not unheard of. But once you start getting, you start unless you're using like a rack blade server or some sort of heavy equipment, you're gonna run it. If you're running it on like an Intel Celeron processor, you're gonna be as fast as fast as a snail. And you're going to end up with a lot of these weird hiccups. But lo and behold, Elon spends billions of dollars and doesn't develop shit. And I don't know why. Maybe they think that they can jack the source code for whatever, but it's not really hard to develop these tools anyway.
Well, does this go back to like some kind of corporate feuding going on? Because
Twitter's always been aimed towards mobile, and I know people say the latter, but even on its web version, it's it's always looked like the mobile version, and all the tools and Periscope and all that was really aimed towards the mobile platform, which is the wave of the future. Laptops are slowly. Well, that's not true. In the business and the tech field, there, laptops and desktops are getting, but the desktops have gotten severely smaller, in the corporate world. But this is a UFO show. I'm talking about my employment.
Maybe these maybe these UFOs have glitches too. That's why they crash on Earth.
It's funny you say that, and I've always had the speculation that these small objects that we're finding or that we're seeing are the ones that the DoD has the ones that I've seen personally with my own eyes. They're not that big. I would say maybe if about the size of my son's crib, if that. Definitely too small to fit anything that I would know as terrestrial life. But I have a small frame of reference, and only even like the Greys, the way they describe them, like they'd be too big too. So I would say that it wouldn't be unheard of that these orbs that have been encountered as service members are lo and behold some form of sentient AI or possibly even AI probes, and that would be one way of scouring the universe. And why they crash, I haven't heard of any of. I really haven't heard. I've heard of the try. I've heard of other uh, you know saucer crashes. I've heard, but I've never heard of any orb crashes or the TR3Bs. I haven't heard any of that. I've never heard of. I've heard of egg shaped or acorn shaped. But nothing as small as what I'm talking about. What we're seeing modern days. And it's funny that I was saying, the modern days. I was listening to Jim Quirk talk on his podcast about the Men in Black and how that phenomenon has gone away. But there's a lot more to the Men in Black that does have like a scarier thing. And one thing was Jim was talking about was that these things not only had telekinetic abilities, but they apparently were somewhat like amphibious creatures. They had gills on the sides of their heads, and they came from the planet Sirius, and they were come from a planet where it is an amphibious type colony, and they they spend part of their time in the water and part of the time on the air, but most of the time in the water due to the extreme air temperatures. But it does go along with the times is that we do see a shift in the types of UFOs that have been reported throughout time. The one constant that has kind of stood up to the test of time has been the more enigmas are the cube squares. Those have been reported since the 50s, and those are still being reported to this day. And those are only seen off the East Coast, off near Virginia Beach and all that, near where our Navy and Annapolis and all that is. Well, no, not Virginia, but more so Maryland, though.
The lights and the orbs, not necessarily the metallic ones, but like the light ones, they're pretty consistent though. That's whether you call them Foo Fighters or
Oh yeah,
orbs.
huh?
Well, the Phoenix lights, but that was kind of a combination. You get that's yellow, not yellow, but those orange orbs are pretty consistent.
Yeah,
Whatever those are. I mean,
and if you look at the Nuremberg entry in the 1500s in the local paper, there is what appears to be somebody trying to attempt to draw a triangular type ship. There is the tube ships, the cylinder ones, and the orbs. So yeah, maybe I'm thinking about it all wrong. I don't know. I've had another 14-hour day and dealing with crazy customers or not customers, crazy escalation tickets. Yeah, I guess, but there is some phenomenon. You don't hear about the Men in Black anymore. You just don't hear about that.
yeah, that was. Well, I think they're still there. I mean, it's a rarity, but like the military, um, their remote field people are literally they can look like military or civilians. I mean, they literally just show up wherever whatever they're dressed in, um, or like a homeland security thing. It's like plain clothes type fed. I think that's more morphed from the Men in Black. That was a thing to do. Like that was a '60s thing. You kind of announced you were a police officer, announced you were a Fed. And your garb and everything. Matched matched that. Now everything's things changed.
Yeah,
Like,
you don't hear too much of the wacky stories that we used to hear in the 80s and 90s since the advent of the internet. We mean every once in a while. I mean, you do on TikTok and shit like that, but you know, for the serious enthusiast, you know, now ufology is kind of hybridized to a few different disciplines, and it depends on what avenue you think this is going, and I don't know. I've kind of had the all encompassing one. I have a hard time. I really do have a hard time dealing with the people that think that the mantis and the reptilian thing, but I don't know. I've always if what I've heard about the Men in Black might have been true, is that these things might already walk amongst us, and if they have the ability to make us see whatever they want us to see, it might be one of those. What was that movie with Ricky Piper, Rodney Piper?
oh, they live.
They Live. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, we might, it would be, and I remember the old Area 51 call from Art Bell back in the day that kind of scared the shit out of me when I was a kid listening to Art Bell, back in 1997 when, the guy was calling from Area 51 and freaked the fuck out and did that we only to find out the next day that the satellite had blown its cookies, the communication satellite that was relaying the call or that was streaming his show onto the biggest nighttime show on AM radio. What if we already are? What if we already are invaded and we don't even know it?
well, that to me, that'd be the most likely. I mean, if you were from some other place looking to do that to a planet, you would have your people there all the time. I mean, you might have others like with these UFOs. I mean, there's going to be a constant reconning of the other guy, whoever that is out there. But if you were the main guy on the planet directing how you want it sculpted, they're already here.
Yeah. It's funny. I get this from people because I do talk about this stuff openly, as I did have. I was more careful about my occult experiences, but since I did that show many many years ago, where I talked on TV and shared one aspect of a large 15-year span of my life. At first, I regretted it, but now I stopped caring what people think about me. 60,000 people know apparently that had watched that show that crashed after the pilot episode, had heard my story, and I was being either ridiculed or this happened to me too, kind of thing. So I don't know. I just kind of stopped caring what people think about me in the whole topic. But it's weird how people still think this is like Scooby Dooville, where people who think that they kind of put the UFOs in the lollipop land, and then there's some serious, and I mean, the things that I know that are true is that there are entities that we can't see, we can't feel and communicate with, that we don't understand what they are. That's been made very apparent to me, in the whole occultism and paranormal stuff. Are they what we think that they are? I don't think so. That's just my personal opinion, and in delving in 15 years and giving a good wazoo. But the weird part is that you can apply that same experience into this UFO field, and it does have this weird overlap property. But the thing that baffles me is the crash, retrieval, and recovery in the bodies of this whole field, which makes it more of a physical, tangible thing. Who's to say that there aren't life forms that walk up that are amongst us that don't have physical bodies? Existing in pure
Yeah, there's a
consciousness.
well, it's not well the UFO. It's not like it's just a physical craft. It's like okay, we got a crashed craft. It's the whole experience that's around that. It's not just one thing. It's abductions. It's the crashes. It's the denial. It's the whole thing. It exposes itself because these things even show up and get seen. That's the crack in the armor.
Yeah, and we're we're
From
we're we're
that point
getting that.
on,
Go ahead.
yeah, from that point on, you're questioning everything and reforming, your worldview, based on what you see, not only what you see, but all these contact experiences, and then just what the governments do themselves. You realize that much more about them and the way they act, and it just exposes everything, man.
Yeah, that was a weird thing I was experiencing when I went into the technological aspect of the paranormal and the occultism and trying to record this stuff. And if you had the right equipment, right, and you had the right cameras, either upper infrared, the upper echelons of infrared or the real low of ultraviolet, you were catching things on camera that weren't seen or heard by anybody. You know that and that maybe that's it. Maybe that's why. I really don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, it's more than well. What I'm taking from this is that again, it's more of an experience. It's not just a physical reality or craft or things that you see. It's this other part that merges almost with the religious of like beings or beings that don't even or the being able to go between realities. It's that much more complicated. If you it's none of what you see is uh well let me go back. Paranormal fits in with like a religious or a UFO experience. It's another weird experience. So you're in a world that has many different experiences. Some are real and physical, and others are these because you don't have but five senses. These other things happen that you can't explain because you're just not dialed in. You don't really see them in the same way you do your normal reality. That's really all you're talking about.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are what we see, fear, what our senses allow us to see is so limited, and that's even been said, about psychedelic drugs is that it filters the filtering process that your brain is not allowing you to see, and maybe that's some correlation, and I don't know. There's been some creepy stories that I've heard recently through various podcasts that I thought I would not come across where I guess there was this one incident where a guy got a good glimpse at the what we call a TR3B or something that looks similar to it, one of these triangular ships, and the ship was displaying properties that what I would describe as a fourth dimensional object, where the morphology would start happening. No real defining color, but yet it did have a color and a shape, almost like a mirage. But it was there, but it wasn't there at the same time. And not only that, was getting telekinetic experiences about what the inside of the ship was, and he wasn't the only one that guy had come across where the same telekinetic imagery was put into his brain, and the first guy thought it was his job to make a 3D model of it, and so that's what he did. But the creepier part was, and this is something that I know that might cross over into the paranormal world, where we get into the weird stories about the jinn and the Quran, which are complete. Some people think those are demonic, and there's a completely different property to jinn than there is to the whole demonology thing. And I can go on and on and on and on about that. But this thing, both individuals had said that this thing was interdimensional, meaning it came from another dimension. And that's just one creepy aspect about the ufology that just throws me a curveball. You know, these guys might not be, some of these guys at least, might not be extraterrestrial and coming from another dimension.
Yeah, and the possibility that they could project this into yours that may not even necessarily be real. It looks real to you, but it's just a projection from somewhere else.
Exactly. It might, yeah, it
Rather than
might.
having, yeah, to travel physically that far, you can get information in and transport it like that, project
Well,
it
yeah.
like that. And
Well,
that
yeah.
would should be easier, if you were trying something like that. It's
Well, yeah. If you lived in a two-dimensional reality and you put a three-dimensional object in there, and I put a sphere through my dimension into yours, all you'd see was a circle, but you would see it appear out of nowhere and vanish into nowhere as I pop it in and pull it out. Almost like what you would see with these weird, what I described as what I would an atypical four-dimensional object would look like. It would be constant morphology and not one. It would have defining features, yes, but you're not going to be able to make out what the hell it is. And
yeah.
that one creeps the hell out of me. And that's something that I've known where the CERN is trying to get to, where their leading theoretical physicist over at CERN doesn't think that because of the Higgs boson particle being 225 GeV is that it doesn't it isn't that means there's only one universe. But there are many people that still think that the complete framework that we have for the Higgs boson particle and all of its other counterparts believe that it's not all within our dimension that holds this structure together. And I think as our science gets a little further into that, by breaking down the smaller bits of this reality, we're going to find some. But the weirder thing is, the more we break up, the smaller things we find. And that's one weird part about this reality is that is there something smaller than small? You know, is there some sort of framework? Because once you get down to a certain level in these subatomic particles, like the boundaries between one dimension or another might be as simple as passing through matter as though it was nothing. And which some of
Well,
these,
you're supposed to be limited by the Planck length and the Planck time. That's like the smallest bit of our reality that you can get to. There is a limit.
yeah, yeah, but apparently
No,
they're thinking Einstein was wrong in his in the black hole stuff about this singularity where our physics breaks down, because you can't have something that get infinitely small. There was some weird behavior that we found out, this last few months, that black holes have been burping up stars they ate many many decades ago. There's nobody bothered to check to see whether they were burping up the materials later on. But the skeptical side could also say that you're also dealing with time dilation and extreme gravitational forces. So
yeah, you may not see it. Yeah, depending on how far it's warped. But you do
yeah,
see that feed. Galaxies do feed and then stop for a while when there's no material coming in. That part goes on. Um,
but I've always thought Hawking radiation is fake. All that I thought it was. I thought Hawking radiation was an attempt to explain something, how matter doesn't completely get destroyed, but at the same time it actually I think
well, it just turns to heat. Hawking radiation is like a heat,
it's
more or
it's a
less.
way
That's
to Yeah,
given off by the activities that go on there, but
there's
they
no way.
eventually boil off. Over time, the black holes just boil off to nothing. Then
That's what I've heard. But then you end up with like supermassive black holes, and
yeah, how
I
long
don't.
does that take? Yeah, when you're that big, I mean, it's just that's like okay, yeah, it happens, but it's like how far down the line?
Well, I think I think as our technology increases, we're gonna find out that the universe is much older than we are, and all the theories that we thought about, this realm, this reality that we live in, is more straight, much more strange than we've ever thought. And I've always thought that at some point, it's a farce. It's a fallacy to think that there would be a cooling going on, and they say that everything's moving farther from each other. But then you see these weird structures of hydrogen that end up like a neural network, and these huge gravitational forces, and they're galaxies that are so even if we got spaced out further and further from each other, there's still the recycling of energy, and it happens all the time. You know, they're galaxies that go dead and they redshift, and we know they're moving away from us. But we also see stars being born from stars exploding. I mean, is there a finite reality to that? We don't know. We absolutely don't know. There's always been that theoretical white hole, where matter reemerges from somewhere else. We have yet to find one, but we haven't been looking for so long.
Well, the Big Bang is an example of a white hole. That's a
Yeah,
creation phenomenon from
somewhere
well,
else.
I would say nothing, but a sub what is this? A subatomic fluctuation in the forgetting the word here.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, so back onto the UFO world. There really hasn't been a whole lot of development this week, other than the recycling of stories and talking about things. There is there are some movements that I am seeing where apparently the whistleblowers now are going around Arrow. Lo and behold, Arrow finally created a website, but it's not fully functional. There is no reporting mechanism from there. Susan Hicks is now, I believe, Sean Kirkpatrick now has to report to Susan Hicks to get something out. It looks like they put the minimum amount of effort into the website. And the website did cover that they will have exploitation of UAP technology. That was in right there on the PDF on their website. So I mean, they deny it to hell, but their paperwork says something else. NASA NASA has their report coming out with the UAP, and I heard some really bad shit about NASA today. Is that I guess they did an audit on the spending for the SLS, and it's um basically there talks about that it costs too much to run the space program, and they're probably going to lose their funding.
oh man, that's hard to believe. I mean, because they're so tied in with the military, honestly.
Yeah, but it's
I mean,
cheaper. It's cheaper to outsource anything they need to private companies.
well, that part's true. Yeah, SpaceX is proving that. But I think we kind of always knew that all along. It's like these contractors, government contractors, were just milking that government tit. Especially since Apollo. Way back when.
Oh yeah, I don't understand the whole unreusability with space stuff, you know, with NASA, where everybody else has figured out that if you're doing a one-time use for everything, then you're losing money.
Yeah, you could have done all this thing. SpaceX is doing like the boosters coming back and all that. I mean, it's people have talked about that for a long time,
Hmm.
but it's typical though. It takes a corporate type look. You know, as inefficient as corporations can be, it still takes that kind of look to get it out of the government field into the commercial environment. You know, get the costs down and all that. You know, it's very typical.
Yeah, now we have the possibility that NASA could have been a great diversion from the actual real space program that might have been secretly running in the background the whole time. You know, we've heard stories about
Yeah,
the Galactic Federation
yeah.
for years, and that SpaceX was
Or
actually
putting some
formed
kind
about a
of
decade before not SpaceX, but Space Force or a Space Command was going on about a decade before it was actually formally called Space Force. So you got that going on too. Black,
yeah. You
black.
don't know. I mean, you know, with all these black budgets from all these agencies like the CIA, who knows what they're into? I mean, because that's been going on for so long, and they've been stacking away dark money for so long. You have actually no clue what these guys are doing. They're totally rogue.
Oh yeah,
They could be doing anything, and are. That's what I would assume that they are because that's their history. They don't want it that way for nothing. They they want it that way so they got money for their projects. You know, so you know they're doing something. And it's only gotten worse.
yeah. Who else is Stephen Greer and a team of attorneys are creating
Mm.
lawsuits right now. Or they're going to formally write their or soon will be filing their lawsuits against the government, various government agencies. To I think Danny Sheenan is on it too. To sue the government or have a lawsuit against the government to pull this disclosure movement even further. I'm I don't put a lot of faith into that. Okay. Do I know that information has come out in lawsuits? Yes, it has. But going against the United States government in a law in a courtroom, I don't know. I don't know. That's like,
It's rare. It's worth doing, but yeah, it's rare that that really leads to anything because you're begging master to quit doing something to you every time. It's in their own forum, so you typically don't see much action.
yeah,
It's like a state trying to beg for something in federal court. Well, you don't do that. You're the sovereign, not the Fed. You don't ask the Fed to give you permission, but for instance, I mean that's what they do though. So it's silly.
yeah. But one of these days, like, I would like to know the whole truth. I don't know if my small 3-dimensional brain can grasp everything that's going on there, but I've seen enough to know we don't know everything. It's
Yeah, just assume you're being in the same way that we think we are the kings of the planet and have everything to operate the way that we do for our convenience. Just assume that that's being done by somebody else to you. That's the way I look at it.
I heard a creepy theory though a long time ago. It was a long time ago.
A
From some
creepy.
guy, yeah, some guy who had an NDE and claimed he talked to God, and God told him that this universe was an evolution of the consciousness realm. And then I was like thinking about that like a lot recently, and then I was like, wait, so if 3-dimensional physical reality is an expansion of consciousness, right, or some consciousness realm that exists outside of our own, what what if our consciousness can manifest things into this reality, and that the whole thing, everything that we're seeing, you know, is like we could be like, what if we're manifesting this stuff from our thoughts?
Hmm.
That would be crazy.
Well, you do. I mean, you do manifest your own world. If you build a house or something, you're manifesting something right there. So you can. Now, I mean, what else can you manifest? I mean, that's a different matter, but
Well,
mentally,
there was
telepathically, but physically, you can still do it. I mean, it's just, you do it all the time.
there's weird stuff that you find in science, like with the electron experiments, where we deal with electron positions, you know, displaying whether they're waves or they're rays, depending whether they're observed or not. And then I got into like actually talking to some people in physics and saying that, you know, energy can exist in what are known as superpositions if there is these is some they won't I won't name names, and probably get in trouble and lose their funding. But they were saying that it might be possible that, you know, the consciousness might be the cosmic glue holding everything together, and then if there is no consciousness, these energy ends up in what you call the probability states, where they're kind of there and they're everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Would just baffle my mind if that was the reality of everything. Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, you're going back to like what is reality. Um, I think it's the other way. You have a physical reality that biological forms come into being into, and then you see it that way.
Yeah,
That's to me seems the most obvious.
yeah.
Because the first consciousness couldn't create all the rest of it. That wouldn't. It doesn't seem right, but
Yeah. I don't know. We'll find out one day.
uh,
We'll meet our maker
yeah.
one day, or the great sleep, depending what you believe in.
Or maybe you won't. So you're just stardust at the end of the day. So I mean
Well,
that
yeah. Nothing in
that was
it.
it.
Nothing's neither created nor destroyed. Yeah.
You've had the whole experience from stardust to a biological form that can experience it all. So hey, what's after that?
I don't know.
Seems like there would be something, but be ashamed if that was it.
Well, I've had an out of body experience in NDE, but you know, I can't dismiss that. You know, that my psychedelic drug experiences weren't that much similar to the near death experience. So the only one that flipped me out was the out of body experience. That one was that one puzzled me the hell out of me. It was the too many psychedelics, and one minute I was in my room and the next minute I was in the neighbors shit. And it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. I remember hearing the birds. I'm like, there's no way I could have heard the birds from inside my room. And I just like passed it off for years. Maybe that was just like it was the drugs, but I remember the feeling of being totally fucked up to dead cold sober, and kind of like seeing like what people would say, how they see everything around them and they're not exactly seeing with their eyes. I kind of had that weird experience, and it was very quick, only maybe 5 seconds, you know.
Yeah, sometimes when you talk to other people, I mean, even though, I mean, just in normal terms, and you realize the experiences that they're having, and you kind of realize it's like we're not. It's almost like you're not at the same place sometimes with people. It's just like they see things different. You know what I mean. Not just politics, but all of it. It's just like they don't, or they're not as aware of what's around them going on, and so they have a different experience. Because you go in there and you're like me, or like looking around and seeing what's going on. You kind of note things, and other people are just like walking down the street, not really caring about anything. So they don't see all these other things that go on around them.
Well, I've
So even
often
if you
said,
have five senses, you can be put in an environment, and if you're just not aware, or you don't care to be aware, you have a different experience, in just that way alone.
And I would say that
You don't know
my
what the fuck's going on. You're not aware of what's going on.
I should only got to fight another 5 minutes, and I got to end the show. I should have started earlier.
5 minutes.
Oh god. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a reason I'm not talking about the UFO topic so heavily on this show. There really wasn't a hell of a lot of developments this week. Um, I
We
mean,
had
we
a
can
big
go.
6 months here. I mean, ever since you started the show,
Yeah,
it's like I mean, like right from the beginning, it's like, holy cow, talk about good
we
timing.
are looking forward to Christmas or the winter in December. That bill will be voted on, and then we know the government will have to declassify a lot of this stuff, and we know that if they declassify it, they will still. It doesn't matter how much we pump this shit out. People still think it's fake. Doesn't government? I think that's the biggest cover story. Is that even but when you want to know specifics, like do you have crash retrievals? They won't answer that. Do you have tech? They go. Their answer is a no. They either say it's classified or I don't know. You know, or I
Yeah,
can't tell you
it's the
that.
same BS. Yeah, well, we're going to get all behind disclosure, and then you don't disclose anything.
Yeah, they did the same thing with the
You could almost
JFK.
predict that. I mean, you're gonna play with it for a while, just like all these other investigations and all the rest of it. Just like you know, just
Well,
doesn't seem to happen. But we'll keep talking about it. We're gonna keep dangling that carrot out there for you.
Congress fairly, they grew a pair, but we'll see how far that goes. They grew a
Oh
pair.
man, they only do that when it's forced upon them. You notice that most because politicians always look like which way the wind's blowing. Unless you got a particularly ballsy one, which is really rare. They're all sticking their finger up to see which way the wind's blowing, and then boom, they'll be on it. As soon as they see which way the herd's going.
Well, I think to David Grush and these whistleblowers opened up a lot of stuff. I don't know why Bob Lazar didn't, but I don't know.
No, yeah, I don't know. It's just, I mean, there have been efforts along the way, by many people, including past presidents, allegedly, to get to the bottom of the thing, but it just hasn't gone anywhere. And honestly, other than happy talk, it's still not really going anywhere. We get the same loop to loop stuff, like from 6 months ago. And you're like, okay, there's going to be disclosure. It's like, well, all right, where's the fucking disclosure? It doesn't take that long.
No, it doesn't.
Start pumping it out.
Yeah,
And you just
exactly.
get this Mickey Mouse, well, we got the special investigator of the committee, it's run by Schumer in the Senate. And I was like, well, who cares about all that? It's like, that has nothing to do with disclosure, it has a lot to do with hiding or manipulating disclosure, but let's just get on with it.
Yeah, you don't need to tell us the details about the fucking craft. You gotta let us know. Do you have it? You know,
Yeah,
I can
is
live with
this
that.
story
I can
about
fucking live
Hangar
with that.
18, yeah, that's been around for 70 years, is that true or not? Is there a Hangar 18 at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base? Yes or no? You know,
Yeah,
oh, well,
exactly.
no, it's yes or no fucking question. Like, come on. That's
Yeah,
where we're
this
at. And these clowns are still doing the ass clown game of, running around acting stupid.
because we know they have the secret. We know they have this shit. Like, there's no
Yeah,
way.
it's like, okay, if you don't call it that, it's called something else or it's area whatever. But it's like, let's get on with it. It's not national security because you guys can't hide it. You haven't been able to hide it from day one
Exactly,
with
but
all your nonsense
the
because your
public think that.
propaganda doesn't work.
Yeah, the public thinks that this is, because it's not out in the open. It isn't. I'm like, they didn't. Yeah, just like you said, they haven't done a good job of hiding anything. And a lot of it's come
No,
out.
they get busted at every turn because they're not good at what they do. They're lazy bureaucrats, top to bottom, and that's what happens. You get a lot of expensive propaganda that's full of holes.
Like this, like the Canada shoot down and the Alaska shoot down. I know for a fucking fact that what they shot over Canada and Alaska, those were not balloons.
Yeah,
especially with that,
Canada's really dodgy about that one. Yeah, that's a
especially after that Trudeau memo, secret memo came out, to a Canadian FOIA.
so they
So,
have to float the whole balloon story and all that stupid. Like it's like come on, that's
all right.
government for you.
And with that, I have an angry wife. I got to end the show. I
Very
try to
good.
do a show next week. I'll let everybody know, either on a post or